Good morning, everyone. I'm really sorry I couldn't be with you in the flesh in Carpi. I'm stuck in Brussels, unfortunately, with other commitments. But I'm delighted to be part of this conference, and hopefully my presentation will contribute to your discussion. So what I'd like to do in the next few minutes is present the situation of carers across Europe and try and say a few words about what the EU institutions are doing to either support carers or recognize the role of carers. But before I start, if I may, I'd like to say a few words about my organization. So my name is Stecy Yghemonos. I'm the director of Eurocarers. Eurocarers is a European network that was created in 2006. We do represent informal care in 2006. The network currently brings together a bit more than 70 member organizations from pretty much all the EU member states. Half of our members are carers organizations, so they work with carers directly, firsthand. The other half is made of research institutes and universities. This gives a great combination because actually we can collect evidence and translate that into policy recommendations. So this conference is about young carers specifically, and originally I was asked to focus on the topic. And I must say, as I was preparing for this presentation, I was struggling to actually find real entry points in the EU agenda on young carers specifically. The issue of carers is mentioned pretty regularly, let's say, and we obviously, part of our work is to try and maintain that momentum. So it's mentioned regularly in the EU agenda for very diverse reasons. But when it comes to young carers, frankly, I haven't found anything specifically about young carers. So the key message here, I suppose, is that if we want to bring, and that's what we're trying to do at Eurocarers, if we want to bring the issue of young carers on the EU agenda, we will need to be creative. So I would suggest the following, again, based on the current socio-economic context. As we all know, because that's relayed by our own national regional government, one of the key priorities at the EU level at the moment is the fight against unemployment, and particularly among young people, which is extremely high in some countries. Greece, for example, I think it's almost 25%. So it's huge. So it's clearly become one of the most urgent tasks for European governments. So too many young people leave school prematurely, running a high risk of being unemployed or socially marginalized. Another challenge obviously relates to the empowerment of young people and their ability to participate actively in society. And actually the Commission has set targets for that in the Lisbon Treaty to encourage the participation of young people in democratic life in Europe. And we believe that this is something we could use to actually draw the attention of decision makers on the issue of young carers. If caregiving activities reveal an obstacle for young people to actually live an active life as European citizens, basically this should be addressed and tackled by EU institutions as well. And so that's a convincing argument. So in the field of youth, when it comes to the Commission, it is the Directorate General in charge of education and culture, which is responsible for the development of evidence-based policy, the management of initiatives in support of education and training across Europe. And the objectives of the GEAC are achieved actually through a dual approach, and that includes specific activities on young people, but that's mainly about non-formal learning, participation, voluntary activities, youth work, mobility, information, access to information, citizenship, and so on. And the second aspect is more like kind of transversal cross-sectoral initiatives that ensure youth issues are actually taken into account by other DGs as well, and that includes the fields of education, employment, health and well-being. So there again, based on what I was explaining regarding the situation of informal carers in the EU, I think there's a lot we can use to try and make the business case, so to speak, for action on carers and young carers specifically. When it comes to the Commission activities, when it comes to youth, everything is framed by the so-called youth strategy, and the youth strategy proposes initiatives in 8 areas, which are listed on the screen here. So again, there you can see pretty relevant entry points. I'm not going to go through the whole list with you. I just want to focus on the 3 first topics in the list, because I think, again, they are pretty, convincing topics, convincing arguments. There are convincing arguments to be made about those issues, and we already have good data at disposal. When it comes to employment and entrepreneurship, the objective of the youth program is to promote youth employment and entrepreneurship, obviously. And so basically, the Commission coordinates the work of member states there, because obviously in those fields, unfortunately, the Commission has no direct competence. The role of the Commission is only to coordinate the work of member states. It's still member states that are in the driving seat. And there, what they try and do is to address the concerns of young people when it comes to employment strategies. So how can they access employment if caregiving activities, as I said before, reveal an obstacle, this should be addressed. Develop career guidance and counseling services. There again, I suppose the issue of informal care should or could be addressed. The need to promote opportunities to work and train abroad. Again, trying to lift up any kind of challenges they might face in the process. Support quality internships. Improve childcare and shared family responsibilities. Now, this is a very interesting one, because the Commission just announced a few weeks ago that they were working, and we are in a dialogue with them now. They were working on a new roadmap for work-life balance, and obviously having access to childcare and beyond that long-term care, formal long-term care services can help informal carers generally and young informal carers to basically share at the very least, their caregiving responsibilities and be able to run an active life. And the last point is about entrepreneurship. When it comes to education and training, there the key program used by the Commission is called, but I'm sure you are familiar, most of you are familiar with the program Erasmus+. It is an important instrument to promote the inclusion of people with particularly disadvantaged background, especially newly arrived migrants. Obviously, we know what the situation is currently about migration, so this program is becoming more and more important. And another challenge, which basically is addressed through this program when it comes to young people, is the need to develop social capital about young people. Again, it's about empowerment. So the idea here is to train young people to boost their skills, to boost their employability, and at the same time, the Commission collaborates through the member states with, education authorities, in the field of education, training, etc., to try and make it easier for young people to access those services. And then finally, through the program, it is possible to put in place transnational partnerships. The last item or topic I would like to address with you today is the issue of health and well-being. There again, there is a Directorate General at the Commission focusing specifically on health and well-being. It's called DG Santé. Unfortunately, we are in contact with them, but they don't seem to do much, frankly, about informal carers at this stage. Hopefully we'll manage to convince them to do a bit more, to be a bit more active. But when it comes to young people or young carers, potentially, again, DG Education and Culture does focus on the need to promote mental and sexual health, but mental health there can be used as an entry point. Sport, physical activity, healthy lifestyles. Again, I think there's a case to be made, and we already have pretty good data, again, about that as well. As I said before, as I indicated before, we have data about the impact of caregiving activities on mental and physical health. So if we can demonstrate that basically informal caregiving activities are not so good for young people's health, at least if they're not properly supported, then obviously we can win a battle, so to speak, and convince the Commission to do more. Preventing and treating injury, eating disorders, addiction, substance abuse, and then finally education and nutrition, are all aspects which could also be used in our advocacy strategy. So just to conclude, the Commission, generally speaking, is focusing, not only the Commission, actually, the European Parliament as well, institutions generally are focusing more and more on the issue of informal carers, mainly, I should say, and in fairness, for economic reasons. They do understand that care systems are unsustainable, as I said. Informal carers therefore have a real strong role to play in future systems, and we need to try and adapt not only systems but working arrangements and employment arrangements to make sure they can combine work and care. When it comes to young carers specifically, unfortunately, there's not so much on the Commission's agenda at this stage, except obviously, as I said, as part of the general approach on employment, health promotion, disease prevention, and so on. But we have good hopes that in the future, including through our advocacy work, we'll manage to convince the Commission to do a bit more. So I hope my presentation gave you a good overview of what it means to work on informal carers at EU level, and I hope I'll have other opportunities to discuss this with you, firsthand, face-to-face in the near future. In the meantime, I wish you a very good conference.